it, do potential employers know what you're all about when they hear about you? We talk about elevator speeches and branding. Well, we'll find out how to do that right now. Joining us in studio now is Dr. Tracey Wilen. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, Dr. Tracey, who's a prominent thought leader and an impact. It talks about technology and society and work and careers. It's so good to see you here in the studio. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's so great to be here. It's just wonderful and a beautiful day, too.
It is because very often, as you know, we speak to our guests all over the country on the telephone, and then we have an opportunity sometimes years later to finally meet them in person. And this is one of those days. And yes, she looks as beautiful as she sounds, Dr. Tracey Wilen. So this is great news from CareerBuilder.com. But the branding thing, now, how would I brand myself?
You know, John, and I've been watching the political debates, and I think they're just great because you can watch branding in the making in real time, and you can watch candidates actually brand and rebrand themselves, and we can learn a lot for our careers.
Even in the divisiveness of this particular campaign, I suppose we have to divorce ourselves from that and just kind of look at the big picture of how people who may have certain perceptions going forward, and maybe you're perceived as not a people person, as someone who is not this or not that. So how would I then rebrand myself? How would I create that image for a John Harper, a Glenn Leverance, a Dr. Tracey Wilen?
Well, one, you have to figure out, what is it that you're pursuing? What do you like to do that you do well, that well enough to get paid for? And then become that persona. And that means you need to build everything, your experience, your skills, your blogs, your websites, your social media is all about that brand. So basically, you're walking into the job that you want before you get it. And I think that's really important for people, that they have to think about what is the next job they want and how do you get there and become that image, that person.
So the, quote, vote you want, obviously, is the vote to get the job. That's why you're the job candidate. As we strip politics from it and just look at campaigning for a job and being a candidate, what's the first thing that I can do to get on a hiring manager's radar? To just say, okay, there may be 100 people for a job that I know that I'm really cut out for. How do I start creating my brand to get on the radar?
That's right. So first of all, you have to really separate yourself from the pack, right? And that's important because if I, as a hiring manager or recruiter, if I can't see you or find you, I don't know about you. So you need to make a little noise. And the way, that you can make noise is to make sure that you're out there with your social media, with your LinkedIn profiles, getting your resume out there. Maybe even publishing so that I know what is it that you're trying to portray to me and I start to notice you. I think that's an important thing. And number two is, like, when I look at the campaigns, every debate starts with an elevator pitch. And I think everyone should have not one elevator pitch, but many elevator pitches.
Now explain what that is.
I will. So just imagine that you walk into an elevator, you're riding up five floors, you got 30 seconds, and someone significant is in that elevator with you who can change your career, could change your life. For those 30 seconds, are you going to stare at the buttons? You're going to stare at the floor? Or are you going to look at that person and tell them in 30 seconds what's unique and different about you and make it memorable? So that person may turn around and decide not to walk out of the elevator, but hang around and get to know you a little more. Elevator pitches, you have them for the debates. You'll notice every candidate opens with an elevator pitch, who they are and how they're different from the other candidates. You need to have one or many of those.
How do I test that? Who do I test that on? I'm not getting an objective audience if I test that on my wife and my family members. But how do I do a little research to see if my elevator pitch from people who know me is actually connecting?
I would say, yeah, family's always very kind, but I would go out and ask my colleagues, your manager, clients and vendors. Test out, this is what I do. Even if you're going to holiday parties and someone will come up to you and say, what do you do for a living? Can you answer that in 30 seconds or less? Or if you're not working for a living and you want a job, do you have a succinct elevator pitch in 30 seconds or less that you can describe that person so that if you need a job, they can help you network?
Dr. Tracey, is part of the value of having that brand just showing others that we know how to kind of play the game as it is played out in a modern life in the workplace?
Well, and that's why I do watch the debates, because that is playing out in modern life. I'm watching people reinvent themselves from medical into presidential, from high tech into presidential. That is very relevant in our own lives because many of us will have multiple jobs. And we will have to package our past experience and make it relevant to a different experience, just like these people are doing in real time. And all of us will probably have multiple jobs, multiple careers, and it's important that we think about individual skills, experiences, and then packaging it so that people can understand what we do and do well.
The good news is the jobs are out there. The better news is Dr. Tracey Wilen is here telling you how to get those jobs by marketing yourself like a candidate. And there are so many different facets to that. Perhaps if you're searching for a job or looking to make a change in your career or just trying to rebrand yourself, we're here to help at 877-766-3777, our Catholic Order of Foresters studio line at 877-766-3777. Also to Morning Air at relevantradio.com with your email. And here's email from a college student, Dr. Tracey, who says that she is fresh out of college and has been trying to take her career seriously. However, she says, I made a lot of bad choices in college, and there's an internet history that's damaging my character. How do I rebrand myself?
Yeah. So number one, bury it. There's a technique that people use in social media. If you keep posting more positive things current, that will eventually bury some of the past. I'd also go back out to people where your posts are present and ask them if they could remove them. And, and remember to use Snapchat in the future so you can dissolve anything that you don't want. But I think it is important. I think a lot of college students didn't understand that all of this history will follow them for a long time. And unfortunately, employers will look, which is why I think it's important that you bury it. But start on a new foot. Maybe you want to develop a website. Maybe you want to develop a different Facebook persona and remove the old one. Maybe you want to start with something different, right? You can use your name and just put in an initial or a middle initial and build out the brand that you want. Remember, college students I know have it tough because you haven't been working yet. But actually, you have been working. You've been working at school. You've been working at getting good grades. You may have been on teams. You may have been volunteering. You need to take all that experience and package it into a resume. And I also encourage going onto LinkedIn and creating a profile and showing how that that experience is very relevant for jobs today.
Dr. Tracey, having a brand and kind of consolidating all of our gifts and talents, aiming for a job certainly makes sense, but it has to be us. Talk a little bit about the need for authenticity here in the age of branding.
Yes, and I do think that is very important, and I'll just refer again to the political debates because some people fudge their facts. And quite frankly, the media and other candidates called them out on it, and that can really damage your chances in interviews. So I think being very ethical, being very true to what your experiences and your facts are very important because people will check you out. And I think you have to understand that it's important that you don't fudge any of your degrees, your experiences, skills, because people will also test you too. A lot more employers now are testing people.
Is truth now a rare commodity or a saleable commodity? It's a sad commentary, but is that now a saleable commodity that I tell the truth?
Oh, I think it is. I think being authentic, and I think this is something that our younger generation has brought to our awareness. Our millennials, our Gen Y, is that they do want to work at very authentic and true work environments. Past generations, we sort of just worked where we were told to work, and that's how it was. But today, actually, they're making more choices and saying, "Hey, I want to make sure you are engaged with the community. I want to make sure that you are doing outreach."
How to market yourself like a candidate, how to rebrand yourself. These are the ways to get the new jobs that are out there, and they are out there according to careerbuilder.com. And that's the good news. The better news is we're getting the great advice this morning from Dr. Tracey Wilen here on Morning Air on Relevant Radio, a prominent thought leader on the impact of technology, society, work, careers, has done work for some of the major Fortune 500 companies. And you can take advantage of her expertise right now as you try to rebrand yourself and maybe change your career, maybe learn how to do that 30-second elevator speech about yourself. 877-766-3777. Call now on our Catholic Order of Foresters studio line to speak with Dr. Wilen at 877-766-3777 at 15 after on more.
Like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey.
Now when you hear that, you think of a brand. It's the classic 1971 Coca-Cola commercial. So how to take that same brand that instantly pops into your mind and make it about you to find the new jobs that are out there. We're learning that today from Dr. Tracey Wilen, who is live in our network studios today. And she is in our network studios because today she is giving a seminar for Heels, Hopes, and Higher Education. It's called What's in Your Future? Working, Learning, and Living in a Technology-Driven World. And that's coming up at the Radisson Hotel and Conference Center in Green Bay later on today. And that's why Dr. Tracey Wilen is gracing us here in our network studios today. That, of course, is one of the iconic commercials. If you're a fan of Mad Men, that's how they wrapped up several seasons of Mad Men, with that classic Coca-Cola commercial, connecting it fictitiously to the fictitious character Don Draper on Mad Men. But you think of that and it's like, bam, instantly. When I think of people like Drew Mariani, I think, instantly, I'm going to learn about my faith. He's going to connect me into what's going on. Our afternoon host here on Relevant Radio. So how do we take those great brands again and make them about us? You've told us about think about being a candidate, going after the job of rebranding ourselves. Okay, we've done that. Now, how do we start building that brand?
Well, one thing I encourage people to do is start developing playbooks. And a lot of the candidates are doing that. They have a playbook for each debate. They have a playbook for each interview. And a playbook is simply, what's my strategy? What's my strategy for this moment or this interview or this debate? Mm-hmm. And what are the series of tactics that I'm going to take? And every playbook should be different, right? So I think a lot of mistakes that candidates do is they interview with the same shtick, so to speak, the same elevator pitch for every interview. And it isn't. You have to actually go out, research the firm, look at what kind of environment, culture, experience that they're looking for, and then develop your playbook. And I would encourage, do a lot of preparation, especially if you're going to be pursuing jobs at companies where you don't really know what they're like. There's so much more information available that you can actually go out and understand the culture, what it's like to work there, what they're looking for, meet some people who are working there so that you can go in with an effective playbook.
Dr. Tracey Wilen, our guest this morning, talking about some personal branding. Steve is listening to Relevant Radio 550 in Rhode Island this morning with a question about branding. Steve, good morning. You're on with Dr. Tracey Wilen. Welcome.
Yes, good morning, guys. I just have a question with branding and just thinking about that, whether it be personal or business or for a job or whatever. I mean, you could brand yourself personally, I suppose, as well. But I'm just thinking of the danger. The danger of being Catholic and whatnot, many Christians listening, the danger of branding leading to pride is my question or statement question.
Okay, that's an interesting balance that we do face. Yeah, branding and building up ourselves, but not crossing that line into pride. How do we do that, Dr. Wilen?
Oh, okay, yeah, I understand. Basically, branding is how do I set myself apart from other people? It isn't, building up the momentum to create me, this persona where I'm larger than life. It's more of if I'm sitting in a room and someone looks at me and two people next to me, do they know why I'm different from those two people next to me? I take it into the job forces. If I'm interviewing for a job and there's 3,000 other people vying for that job, how am I different than those other people? I may not be different because of pride. It's just more of because I have these specific skills, because I have this experience, because I have branded myself as let's just say, for example, the ultimate marketing manager. And here's why I am the best marketing manager, vying for that position and different than others. Good question, though.
Yeah, good question, Steve. We're not talking about ego, but really just taking those gifts of the Holy Spirit and letting others know that they're there and you're the best candidate for the job. In light of the fact that thecareerbuilder.com says the job market is improving, and it is, we've seen those figures. There are some of the realities of the job market, as evidenced by this email from a Relevant Radio listener who is 54 years old, says, I've been out of work for more than a year. Yeah. I don't want to go into my old career, but I also don't want to be a Walmart greeter either. Is it too late for me to rebrand? How do I do that?
Oh, no. I just met a woman who was out of the workforce for 26 years and was able to effectively move back into the workforce. So here's a couple of things. As we become more seasoned, and I view myself in that category of people, we have many, many experiences. So the challenge for us is to pick out the relevant experiences and skills for the position that we're trying to pursue. The second thing I think is when you're looking for a job, you have to say, who will hire me, right? Who will hire me because of the things that I have done, not where do I want to be, right? Because when you're hiring someone, you want them to produce on day one. So you have to have almost like a sit down with yourself and say, okay, maybe I don't want to do exactly what I was doing in the past, but I might have to use that job. And this woman, for example, was a project manager years ago. She used the project manager skills. She didn't want to go back into a high-tech firm, but she used it to go into a university. So you need to think about what are the things I can do on day one, and how do I package that to be very important and relevant to the employer that I'm trying to pursue the job for.
So that's a way to get around any gaps in your career if you've been out of the workforce for a period of time. That's just another way around it. How do you address if you were let go, if you were fired from a job? But do you just say, this is what happened? How do you talk about that?
This is where the elevator pitch comes in is very handy. You need to have a statement and just say, there was a transition. I was part of a larger transition, and now I'm looking at this, right? You redirect the conversation to exactly where you want to be, and don't dwell on the past. Everyone has been through transitions. I myself have been through 4 transitions over my lifetime.
Wow.
It happens. It just happens, particularly in high tech. Oh my goodness, we're getting laid off every other year. So I think people, you're not singled out at all. It's economic events. Everybody understands it. They're more interested in what you can do for them today, not your past history. Don't dwell on it. Don't dwell on bad connections from the past. Dwell on what you can do for that company, moving them forward into the future.
Where do I use humor in an interview?
Carefully. I would be very, very careful about humor, because not everybody laughs at the same kind of jokes. So I would just skip that unless you think you and that person know each other so well. And that would be, way down the line. But I would just skip it completely.
Let's talk about confidence. When you get in front of the person who's going to make a decision, do you use the word we, assuming that you have the job, where you have that outlook that you're a part of the team and you have a vision to help that person move, not only move the organization forward, but move your manager forward as well?
Yeah, that's a good comment. So you have to have that balance of when you talk about I, which is what I have achieved, and then we, as part of the team. Right, the assumptive close almost, you're talking about as if you're already in the position and you're already moving the company ahead. And you watch the candidates will do that. Many of them will just talk about, like, I am already president and I'm already in the office, and we, the people, right, are moving ahead. So you have to be delicate about when do you keep promoting I, and then when do you balance it with we. And I would, be very aware of body, and eye contact, and are you getting encouraged, because people let you know if, you may want to move us in that direction, but I don't want us to move in that direction. But, it is something that you can use strategically to your advantage.
And speaking of eye contact, is also pay attention, not only obviously to the conversation, but very often, and I'm sure you found this, Dr. Wilen, you go into a hiring manager's office, you want that job, you've gotten that far along in the process. Pay attention to what's in their office. There may be a common interest that could be an icebreaker that starts the conversation.
Oh, sure. So I always look around at the pictures. If they have family, ask them about that. If they have fishing rods or different memoirs from their travel, talk about that, and to open up the conversation. But I always bring in a list of questions, and that's what I encourage people, that it is not a one-way discussion. They are expecting a two-way dialogue, and having, very useful questions. Don't ask about their website. They expect that you've gone out to the website, right. You've looked at them, you know who they are. Ask good questions so that they are talking, and the more they talk, the more they will engage you in the conversation as well.
And again, I suppose with about 90 seconds remaining, if you've got somebody you can rehearse an interview with and have somebody just throw some crazy questions at you, you'll be better prepared to walk in there to think on your feet. That's another great skill to sell. I can think on my feet.
Yes, and you can just go out and Google pretty much interview questions, and you will find thousands of them, and just keep practicing, even if it's in a mirror.
That's great. So, the practice tools are out there. And perhaps the most important thing, have that elevator speech ready. And I'm just thinking, if I had to do an elevator speech and talk 30 seconds, I could talk about relevant radio, but it's pretty hard to talk about yourself in 30 seconds. So that's kind of a challenge. Some prayers to the Holy Spirit would certainly help.
Oh, no, I have a Mad Lib. I do an exercise when I'm out speaking, and I just say, fill in these 3 blanks, and people have elevator pitches. It's not that hard. It's, who you are, why are you unique, and what's special about you. And boom, there you have your elevator pitch.
No kidding. It's that simple. I guess we tend to overcomplicate things, don't we?
We do. You just have to really understand yourself and understand what experience, skills that you want to discuss that make you unique in that particular pitch.
Dr. Tracey Wilen, thanks for coming into our network studios. If you're listening in the Green Bay area today, part of HEALS, Hopes, and Higher Education, an event for current and future leaders. What's in our future? Walking, learning, and living in a technology-driven world. Dr. Tracey Wilen will be in Green Bay later on this morning at the Radisson Hotel and Conference Center. Thanks for coming in this morning. It's so nice to finally see you in person, Dr. Tracey Wilen. Thank you.
Thank you.